Okay, with me today, I have the wonderful Jessa Frances. Jessa, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, thank you.
So, first thing I'd like to ask everybody, because this is international, is where in the world are you currently?
I am currently sat in San Antonio, Texas, but I'm getting ready to move to Charleston, South Carolina. And yesterday I was in Michigan.
Gosh,
I'm kind
that's
of all
literally
over the
opposite
place.
ends of the country.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm like a ping pong ball.
as long as you're enjoying it. So, Jessa, you do a lot of retreats. You have a lot of different groups that you work with. But let's go back a bit and just start off with how did you get to doing what you do now, and what was your journey to get there?
Oh, I'm happy to share that, especially because what I do specifically is help people understand that their story is their roadmap. Your story is your manual to your truth and understanding and awakening to who you are and what you want. So, yeah, to try to give you kind of a quick overview. American girl born in on a farm in northern Indiana, and just went through absolute all kinds of trials and tribulations, underwent all sorts of different programming that is normal for all of us growing up, and from my family, from society, all of these things, and really just lost myself, didn't know who I was, what I wanted, and I just started following the path of like what I thought I should do. And so that led me into the military, and I joined the Air Force straight out of high school. I did a 4-year enlistment, but then what was next for a young woman but to get married and have babies. And so I did that, even though I knew I was immediately not happy with with my partner. I chose someone that I thought was gonna, I don't know, save me, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I just went ahead with the plan, all right, of what I thought I should do. But years pass and I'm absolutely miserable. I feel like a complete and total failure as a mother, as a wife, as a human, because I'm not living my truth. I'm not living for myself. I'm living for everyone else. And I had my GI Bill from my time in service, and I was like, okay, this is going to run out. And there's a time frame that you have to use your to get your degree. And
Um,
so I
but
was
just
like,
gonna,
all right,
sorry,
I'm
sorry.
gonna go
But
for it, right? I'm figure it out. And I had no idea what I was gonna do. So I just started taking prerequisites, and I finally was like, the one thing I've always loved to do is write. I'm gonna get a degree in English. Maybe it'll lead me somewhere. And then I found memoir. I found memoir writing through the different like classes I was taking. And I found that by writing these little snippets of my story, I was uncovering my truth. I was unraveling all of the confused thoughts that were in my mind, that writing was this tool to help me learn, and that my story was the book that I needed to both write and read to uncover everything. And that led me to get my master's degree in Aberdeen in Scotland. But right at that time, it was like a huge and massive thing kind of all at once. I was finally stepped away and out of my unhappy marriage and had decided on divorce. I was stepping into this like, okay, I'm going to take on my future. I'm going to go get this master's degree. I'm going to go to the place that I've always dreamed of going, which was Scotland. And I just took on this whole thing, but there's children involved, right? And there's also all of this confusion and self-loathing and grief and guilt and shame and all of the things. And I get over there and I'm thinking, if I'm not a mother, who am I? And just kind of crumbled into a pit of despair. And that was the beginning of 2020, and COVID hit, and it like locked me into that vortex of grief and despair. Right. And in order to kind of get myself out of that pain, I would rent a car about 3 or 4 days a week, and I just drove and hiked. I saw all of Scotland, but all by myself. And at the same time, I was writing my memoir, and I started at the very, very beginning. And I was like, okay, this is the life I was born into. And in the beginning, it wasn't my story, it was my parents' story. I needed
Mm.
to understand them and the situation and the life that I had come into for me to actually understand myself and get to the point that I could then roll with it and recognize how that upbringing influenced everything else. And I just had epiphany after epiphany, all of these aha moments like, my gosh, wow, like that's where all my self-worth issues came from. That's where these are my limiting beliefs. And yeah, so ever since then, it's just been a wild ride of integration, of healing, of taking that story and the programming and rewriting the script and deciding for myself, what I want to move forward with, what I need to leave behind. It's been absolutely beautiful. I'm now a alcohol-free beverage consultant and a trauma-informed yoga teacher and a retreat facilitator and a writing coach. And so I've created this beautiful, beautiful fantasy life for myself just based off of my own truth, my own healing. And now I get to share it and I get to serve others. And that's actually what I was doing in Michigan. I was holding a retreat, supporting a retreat there. And yeah, it's amazing what happens when you finally start making decisions based off of love rather than fear.
That's
So,
amazing. There's a couple of
mm,
things I really want to touch on that you've talked about already. One is the labels. And you said a really interesting, who am I if I'm not a mother? But also the labels that you get from your parents and labels you get from your programming. And I think what's amazing about your journey, your story, is the fact that become aware that you are not these things or not only these things. And I think in a world where we like to put people in boxes, these boxes don't always serve us because you're more than just mother, you're more than just a daughter, you're more than just, but who we are actually, we don't always have time to uncover. And I'd like to explore a little bit your time in Scotland during the pandemic because I'm sure there's a whole range of emotions that went through your mind when the lockdown happened. Not all positive, I can imagine, with your children being back in the US. Obviously, it gave you this opportunity to explore yourself. So when it was hit, what was your immediate reaction and how did that change or differ as time went by?
mm, that's a good question. And, yes, there was a huge fluctuation of emotions. And, there was just still at that point in time so very much for me to learn.
Mm.
And I had to put myself into the seat of the student and also the seat of the witness, to kind of watch myself being a student. But yeah, no, I had always, because we label ourselves, and I had labeled myself as wife and mother, and I had failed at those things, or so I believed. And then I was like, well, I'm a writer. And so then I started putting all of myself into that. I'm a writer and this is what I need to create and do in order to be this writer. And then, I'm trying to like slowly add on and figure out all these things I like, right? And so I'm hiking and I'm like, well, I'm a hiker. I'm an avid hiker. I'm an outdoors person. And I start gathering labels. That was like, I love that you brought this up because that is 100%, like, oh, I'm creative. I'm outdoorsy. I'm sweet and kind, I'm a big talker. Like these things that I was able to start, okay, identifying with. And
Mm.
then I actually was in therapy a while after this, and I had gathered all these things that I liked and wanted to do. And I told the therapist, I said, I feel like an 18-wheeler with all the tires pointed in a different direction. I didn't understand that I could be all of it. Like I was
Mm.
still car like boxing myself, right? I was
Mm-hmm.
just I wasn't allowing myself to work and move in a cohesive, beautiful way. Yeah, while I was over there, honestly, that's what it was. It was just me gathering up the bits of myself. And I think I actually wrote this in a poem, but I kind of talked about how I was a puzzle piece, that I had been taking pieces off of everyone else to try to make myself into this beautiful picture. And
Hmm.
a huge part of that growth process was actually dismantling the puzzle. And because I'd found pieces and tried to shove them into places that didn't fit. And it was an unbecoming. So it was like okay, here's this sweet little girl that I was, and here's the things that I liked, and here's the things that I didn't like. And it's also been realizing that that puzzle is like this yin yang, and that there was good parts and bad parts, but they all made the whole of something beautiful. And I could accept the dark and the light. I could accept and love the good things and the bad things and the ebbs and the flows. And that it wasn't ever about being a puzzle in the first place. Um, but finding balance and joy. And yeah, so it was definitely labeling and unlabeling myself.
Amazing. I love that. And I think it's important that we give ourselves permission to do that. But I think, the gift that you had, although, as I said, it might not seem like it at first, was that time in Scotland to do it when you could go nowhere, you could see no one. And I think the pandemic taught a lot of people how uncomfortable they were with themselves in isolation, and some for good reasons, some for bad reasons. So what I love about your journey is that you turned what could have been a very difficult situation, I'm sure it was a difficult situation, into this it's amazing opportunity to go, okay, so who am I and who do I want to be, importantly? And that takes a lot of courage.
Time is a gift,
Mm.
and your energy is the force that, allows you to make the most of your time. And when you recognize your energy and you recognize how it influences the time in itself, like when things are really good and time goes by really fast, and when things are not good, it feels like time's going really slow. And I thank the universe, whether you're religious or like I was crying into the sky. I was crying into the universe, please help me, guide me. I surrender. I I'm lost. I'm here alone. I had and I just had to somehow have a sense of just the ability to surrender and trust that everything was happening to me for a reason, and that I had been landed in this incredibly beautiful, aesthetically beautiful place alone for this time so that I could learn what I needed to learn and do it in a way that, I mean, post-traumatic growth, right? I had all these traumatic
Mm.
experiences, and that I could pole vault myself almost through like this 2020 COVID riddled vortex into a future where now I'm equipped with my healing is what makes me a healer, and if it had taken me years and years and years and years, I would have never gotten to this place where I am now, where I can go and hold the hand of others. I can go and
Mm.
be and support them through their journey. I know what it takes to write these stories. I know the need for time, space, surrender, nature, all the different modalities. You need conscious, awareness to sound, to your energy. It's been hard, like just struggle after struggle, but in a strangely delightful way, which is so odd, right? To be in a place of lack and fear and uncertainty, but then also just surrender and absolute determination to get to the light and to remain in a state of optimistic love. Really, it's just, I'm not going to choose this fear. I'm going to choose the love, and just reminding myself of that and staying in a place of, I'm not going to fall back in the pain. Is that going to do for me, and just constantly reminding myself that I am in control of my own mindset. I am in control of my own energy, and that I can I'm the creator of this life. I'm the writer of this story.
No, that's amazing. And again, I go back to the word courage, but it's actually quite easy to sit in pain because, like, the brain is wired to be negative. The brain is wired to feel these things. It thinks it's protecting you, and it becomes a familiarity, a comfort blanket. But of course, pain is and should be temporary. It should be there to teach us a lesson, but we shouldn't sit in it. And what I love about your journey again is how you have gone beyond it to this place of love. And of course, that's the place we really ought to be, is that place of love for ourselves, but also, love for the life that we have in whatever form it takes. And if you're writing coaching, and you talked about how difficult it is for people to go through that process, but how it helps. So how do you apply that now when you're coaching others from the lessons that you've learned?
Yeah, I know. I love that you mentioned, that you're talking about pain and you're talking about the nervous system, basically, and how, our nervous system gets to this baseline of you're in a place of fear and pain and uncertainty, and that's just what's normal. And we just keep going back to that all the time, subconsciously, unconsciously, with choosing different partners that are not good for us, choosing work, that we don't like, to keep us in this baseline state of unhappiness. But just like happiness is an emotion, fear is an emotion, and we're going to have these fluctuations of all these different kinds of emotions. And with my writing, memoir, right, that's your past. And a lot of people don't want to face their past. They're like, I already did that. I don't want to go there again. But I remind people that the tree only grows in big and strong and beautiful, and will only remain capable of having these incredible, beautiful branches that reach if it has strong roots. And so my programs are all based on the foundation and working on the roots so that you can nourish and love those roots in order to grow those big, beautiful leafy branches and to go out and create the life that you want. It's acknowledging and loving what is underneath, right? Where you came from, your lineage, your ancestry, your past, and nourishing that, and realizing, those roots need wells in which to find resources. And so, the very first couple weeks of working in any of my programs, it's just building a foundation. And it's like, what are you eating? How are you moving your body? What are you consuming regularly? What does your daily life look like? And we have to work on that. We have to work on the foundation. And then we can kind of like, what's happening underneath? Why is the floor wobbly? Let's get the roots to really dig down in and find that nourishing, find those wells of just what we need to pull from. And that's when we search out joy. And with that, we're regulating the nervous system, and we're trying to get away from that baseline fear state, that baseline of uncertainty and stress and anxiety, and to tap into the parasympathetic nervous system as much as possible and as often as possible, to change the narrative, to get yourself into a place where this feels good to be good to myself. This feels good to honor myself. This feels good to eat this thing and that is better for me, to go on this walk, to tap into nature, all of the modalities, all the medicine. When you start up a business, like, who's your target audience? I'm like, I'm the foundation. Like, if you want to be a leader and go grow and go be crazy, yeah, go over there. I'm the one that wants to help you nourish your roots.
That's brilliant. And I think people underestimate, and I love the tree analogy as well, because it really is about providing that secure, strong base to grow from. In this day and age, we want everything fast. We want it quick. We want it easy. But longevity is slow and steady. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And using the analogy of a tree, you can really see how trees only get so strong when they take the time to grow in the space and the right nourishment. And the bigger the tree, the better the long older it is, but the better nourish it has. So I love that analogy that you use. Now you've got the Cairn Circle, which is a big part of what you do now. So
CAIM, it's a circle, and it represents sanctuary. And I realized really early on that the place that I always felt really truly seen, heard, and loved, where I felt a sense of I'm safe, was with my grandmother. And we, have these Gaelic Celtic roots, and it all just tied in together to me wanting to use this particular symbol. And it's because when people come to me, I want them to feel a sense of protection, of sanctuary, and to know that they are not judged, that I believe 100% in oneness, and that we are all in this together. And I want to be the ripple effect. I help you, and then you're going to help others, and it's just going to go out into the world in this beautiful way. And it's just always comes back to that circle, and it's that beautiful circle that wraps around us. And true growth happens when stories are told in safe places. And so I wanted to create something that symbolized that safety. Like, okay, I'm going to go be with Jessa, and I'm going to sit in a place of nourishment, of safety. And my programs are rooted and reaching is like you have this beautiful symbolism around everything. It's just part of who I am, and I love it. And it's something that makes me just feel good every day when I get to wake up and do that. And I think that's another huge thing, is just letting yourself have those things. When you're talking about what it means to slow down in our world where, we're praised for accomplishment. We're praised for getting things done, getting them done and getting them done quickly. It's a radical act. Like, it is taboo to slow down. It is this humongous thing to be like, excuse me while I breathe. Like, I'm going to take a moment to go.
Sorry, no time for breathing around here.
No time for breathing.
So,
and that's a huge part of all of it is slowing down. There's so much joy and nourishment and taking a breath.
And of course, there are so many different breathing, breathwork modalities now that people that date back to ancient times. I always joke with my clients, my therapy clients, I said that the one thing I'm going to do for you straight away is going to help improve your sleep. And they're like, why is that important? It's like, because sleep is so important. But the next thing is just slow down. Like, just stop trying to do so much, be so self-critical on the go. And we're all guilty of this. And it's almost when you first try to slow down, I bet you had this, and I bet your clients have this, is that guilt of like, I'm not being productive, so I can't do this. And we really have lost the art of doing nothing.
Yes. My self-worth just plummeted because I did not accomplish all of these things. I grew up, my mother was a heavy equipment construction worker, an artist, a homemaker. My mother, she was everything. And I remember she would never sit down, because the moment she did, she would just collapse into sleep because she was just so exhausted. She would sleep like 4 hours a night because the only way she could get it all fit in was to stay up late and to wake up early. And it's just nonsense.
It's incredible when you think about it, but you're right, it's nonsense. And again, we're setting ourselves up for a harder life when we get older by not slowing down now. Not because not only because we'll be exhausted by the time we might get to retire, but more because our bodies, once you stop, that's when you get sick, that's when you get overwhelmed. And if you wait all your life to do it, back in the UK, and I'm sure it's the same in the US, men would retire and die because they'd worked. That's it, their bodies gave up. Yeah. And now the great thing about the world we live in, at least particularly in the Western world, is we have access to to healthcare. We have access to this knowledge. This knowledge isn't even new. This is Eastern wisdom that we're now rediscovering, and wisdom from the Greeks that we're now rediscovering. And we have every
Yeah.
opportunity to take hold of it, and we don't. We just hustle, hustle, hustle.
Yes, it's amazing because, you know, all of my yoga teacher training comes from the Adi Shiv lineage, which is the oldest of all of the yoga, and 5,000 years old. It's like, this is not new information. We're just finally like, well, you know, we had to get to, you know, it makes you appreciate technology because we're like, okay, if it wasn't for all of this, we wouldn't have this vast wealth of information, you know. And now I'm, you know, teach pranayama and meditation that has, you know, just been lost to people because they didn't recognize the true power in it, you know, as we were building up the world. And it's interesting to think how it's coming back into this full circle where people are like, I want to go back to primitive life. I want to go homestead. I'm going to go can my own food and walk around outside and breathe while I feed the chickens. Like, it's beautiful to see how we're beginning to finally see, like, oh, we've been poisoning ourselves, mind, body, spirit. And that's not good. And seeing the change just gives me so much hope.
Absolutely. If I ever get into politics, which I'm never going to do, but if I do, I'm standing on a platform of naps and nature walks. That's going to be my whole manifesto. Everyone should have siestas every day and go outside. That's all we need to do to live better.
I love it.
Well, it's just start anyway.
Go back to like preschool, like primary school, where you still had to like take it.
Honestly, I think there's a whole lot of tired, overworked people out there who could just do with a siesta. That's all I'm saying.
It's true.
Now, with your retreats, so what sort of retreats do you run? And because you've got so many different talents that you bring, is it a mix of all of them, or do you focus on one thing at a time? Thinking about that foundation that you bring.
Well, a little bit. There's different things, right? So some of my retreats are going to be, you know, 2-week long memoir writing retreats. And those are for people who obviously they're writers or they're retired or they, you know, people who have 2 weeks to take. And I really want to go dive deep and to write. And as we do that, I always incorporate yoga. And a lot of people think of yoga as stretching and the physical aspect, but yoga has 8 limbs. And the first 2 are just be nice to others and be nice to yourself. So and so it's just like getting to this understanding of like, how am I speaking to myself? How am I speaking to others? And then it's body movement, and then it's breath work, and then it's meditation. There's so much that goes into yoga. So yoga in itself is very multidimensional. And so I also always incorporate some sort of nature. I'm a nature person, and that's, you know, my 18-wheeler is all pointed in the same direction now. I take the nature, I take the movement, I take the breath work, I take the writing and the creativity, and it all flows together so beautifully, so cohesively. But that being said, like the last retreat that I just came from, I'm with a group, we're called Full Spectrum Healing. And we had an art therapist, we had a sound healer, we had a massage therapist who helped with like energy specifically, my writing techniques, we had nature, we had ecstatic dance, we had like all these different sorts of medicine pulled into this one container for 4 days of absolute incredibly beautiful magic. We all just synced up together, and I like smaller groups. It was 9 of us. I usually 14 is like the max because I want everybody to be able to click and get to know each other and to create this beautiful, beautiful bond while you're at these things, you know. And when, you know, you have the Kiem circle, that place of sanctuary and safety, you're not going to really be able to have that with too many people. So yeah, my sweet spot is between like 8 and 12.
Nice. I was
Yeah.
just on a business retreat and we're in Spain, and there were only 5 of us as delegates, and I think 5 mentors. And it was just wonderful. It was, like I said, it's just the right size because I felt like I was getting all the attention, and we had yoga and we had the different mentoring. And I think what a lot of people try to do now is they try to scale and go to many, one to many is the business model. But
Mm.
I think one to few is actually the sweet spots,
Mm.
because that's where you as the individual taking part can get the attention, but you as the provider, your energy is not stretched too thinly, and you can give the best to everybody so that everyone sort of succeeds. So I can imagine that would be a wonderful group size.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What I love is people can kind of take what they want. Like in my membership, um, I do a weekly workshop, and I just always remind people like take what works for you and leave what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's a topic, we go over it, you have the slides, you have the workbook. It works for all the different kinds of learning styles. And then there's follow-up support afterwards, but there's also affirmations, journaling prompts. I have recorded yoga workouts. I have gym routines. I have like reminders to dance, to sing, to run around and play, to laugh, all of these things that because some people don't want to go to the gym and some people, love the gym. Like, so it's just allowing yourself to find what works for you, what feels
Mm-hmm.
good to you, and to let yourself do those things. Like, it's okay if you're not a gym rat. It is okay. There's something for everyone, and that's what makes you and yourself so beautiful. Because, like I can't sing to save my life, but like I still love to do it. Like, and just allowing yourself those things. So yeah, I think it's so important to remember that we get caught up in perfectionism, and that's also nonsense.
So it all goes back to slowing down and just going, what's right for me? And that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
With your time in Scotland, is there one place that you found transformative, that kind of inspired you while you were there?
Okay, yes, absolutely. So my dream is to move back. I nothing against the States. There's a lot of wonderful things here. A lot of great opportunity, but my heart, like I explained it the other day. I feel like Scotland has like the fishing rod and the hook is in my belly. It's just like
Yeah.
every once in a while I feel like this yank. It's time to come home. And so one day I'll get to move back. But the place that I would love to end up, I see myself retiring in the town of Stonehaven. I went to the University of Aberdeen, and that's, in the Northeast. And it's just, I loved the Granite City. I loved it there, very beautiful. And it was a 20-minute train ride south to I had looked up the Dunottar Castle, and so I went down there to see the castle. But I fell in love with this beautiful little portside little town, Stonehaven, and they have a woods. They have the hiking trails. It's all along the coast. The ruins of the castle. I was able to truly because I was just able to take that train ride, I was able to just kind of rest there, and I found so
Mm.
much rest. Besides that, I loved Orkney. Um, I really loved, there was something very interesting that happened to me when I was in Stirling. Like, I think I have ancestors there or something. It was like, it became a little like weird, like I like I had tingles and like
Single
lots of
feeling.
goosebumps, things like that. Yeah, no, honestly, and I love England and I love Ireland and I love all of Great Britain. Really love Cornwall and Devon. Absolutely, just gorgeous, gorgeous. but there was just something about my soul, to be honest, that just resonated deeply, does resonate very, very deeply with the land there. The first time I ever went was, goodness, like a decade ago. And I just walked out onto the grass. I went to Edinburgh and I was walking out onto the grass headed towards Arthur's Seat. And I'm just marching along, like ready to go hike. And I step foot in the grass and my knees just go weak. And I just, before I know it, I have fallen and I'm on my knees and my hands are on the earth and I'm crying because I just was like, there was just this feeling of you're home. And so, yeah, I've, it was a beautiful, beautiful place. And one day I'll be back.
Well, I'm waiting for you to come back to run a retreat in Scotland so I can come. So,
Yes,
you
I
know,
am actually. I will send you information. I'm very, very
brilliant.
excited. Yes, it is. It is in the future.
That would be amazing. I think the power of your story, the power of your journey, so you have such a wealth of experience already before you then went and you defined who you are. And I think it's important for people to understand that it doesn't matter who you think you are or who you think you should be, but as you have done, to go out there and go, let's just start with where I'm at. Scotland in a lockdown, away from home. What do I do now? And I'm not advocating more lockdowns because no, but I am advocating, as you say, that slowing down, that giving yourself the time to really say, do I like this? Do I like that? Am I a great singer? Am I a shower only singer? I think all these things are fine, but it's allowing yourself permission to do just that. And with what you do and laying the foundation, I think it helps people to find what those roots are and then, as you say, go forth and build them. But taking the time to build the roots in the first place is the thing that makes the difference.
And if I could leave this with one final thought kind of thing, like what is the biggest takeaway? What is the one thing that I wish that everyone would do? Get curious rather than judgmental. Just be curious. You know, we go out into the night and we look up at the stars and we think about the great philosophers, Plato and Socrates, and what did they, all the big brain people out there, what did they all have in common? And they were just curious. And you look up out at that night sky and you are like, wow, stars and planets and this universe, and what is it that we're all doing here? And all, that sense of curiosity is there. Turn that inward. Because you are a universe all inside yourself. We're made of stardust. It's so wild to think of, but it's true. And when you close your eyes and you're feeling confused about meditation or anything like that, just begin there. Begin with the thought of really exploring yourself the way you would the night sky.
It's beautiful. Jessa, thank you ever so much for coming on here and talking about everything. How can people find you if they want to ask you more questions?
Okay, yes, please do. I am Jessa Frances, JESSAFRANCES. People spell it wrong all the time on Instagram and Facebook. I am doing Threads now, but kind of just because it's linked in with everything else. My full name is actually Jessica De La Rosa on LinkedIn. So if you're trying to find like my LinkedIn profile, that kind of thing. And then, my website is jessafrances.net. And so I have a website with all kinds of different resources, all kinds of information. But the best way is just to get on a social media of some sort and to send me a message. And I would love to chat. I also have my own podcast, the Kim Circle Podcast. If you ever want to listen in, I have a episode out every Tuesday.
Perfect. And I'll try and stick all those links in the show notes below as well. Brilliant. Thanks. Thank you again, Jessa. It's been wonderful. And I look forward to hearing and seeing more of you in the future.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm honored to have been here with you today.